Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 7th Property Finder webinar, where we share our data as well as invite guests from the industry to help you navigate through the COVID-19 situation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ari Keshishoğlu, and I'm the president of the Property Finder Group. Now, this is our 7th webinar, and like the previous weeks, we will continue to shape the UAE real estate market and also help your businesses. Now, in case this is your first time here, let me share what we are doing in this webinar. Now, even with the recent increases in mobility, the coronavirus situation is still affecting the economy, and we're all in this together. We, as Property Finder, want to be your best partners during this time, as well as in the future. This is important for us because we, as a company, we do well only if your businesses do well. So, like previous weeks, what we want to do is to give you more visibility into what's happening in the market, and we'll do that through our data, and hopefully we'll help you transact through insights. We have a lot of data and amazing data scientists who are working super hard to identify insights that can help you run your business during this time. Now, we will continue to share our data and insights with you today. Every week, we ask you for your feedback, and we're taking that feedback into consideration in how we plan these webinars. So our flow today will reflect what you told us last week. You told us that you want to continue to hear from external experts, so we have more for you this week. And like previous weeks, we will share our unique data. So I will start with a very quick update on the COVID-19 data, and it will be very, very quick. And then we'll go into the update on the impact that we see on the UAE real estate markets. But again, a bit shorter this week, like last week, because we want to focus more on our external guests. And also, we want to share with you some search trends that you can turn into actions. Then we'll have our first external guest from a country where there was no lockdown, and from the most popular real estate portal that also supports their clients with innovative products. She will share insights on user behaviors post-COVID in the property market. And you also showed a lot of interest last week on the mortgage-related questions. So we have Warren from Mortgage Finder with us as well. And at the end, as always, you will have the possibility to ask questions. Some of them will be answered directly in the chat, in the app, others during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And then as we did every week, straight after webinar, we're going to send you an email so that we get your feedback, so that we can continue to make this even better. Now, with that, let me introduce your hosts today. Next slide, please. So together with me, I have Lynette Abad, the Director of Research and Data, and Stuart Shapley, the Director of New Homes. Stuart is also running our coronavirus response approach at the moment. And as always, we also have team members behind the scenes so that we all have a smooth experience today. I will now hand over to Lynette to drive the presentation. Lynette?
Thank you, Ari. Ramadan Kareem, everyone, and it's very nice to be here with all of you today. Next slide, please. As per your suggestions and feedback, we have two guests this week. First one is Francesca Cortesi from Hemnet, the leading Swedish real estate portal. And the second one is Warren Philiskirk, Director at Mortgage Finder. We are very excited to have them this week. Now, let's dive into the data. Next slide, please. Every week, we ask you if you are happy with the content of the webinar. According to the survey and the increasing number of participants every single week, it looks like you are. That's why we are here again today. On the left side, I share how you graded us. 93% of you thought the webinar met or exceeded your expectations. 90% of you found that the data we share is of value. And this week, or last week, 100% rated Property Finder's efforts to be your best partner as good or above. Last week, Ari mentioned it will be very difficult to beat the numbers from the previous week, which was a 98% rating. But this week, it was even better. Thanks for these ratings. We at Property Finder are working very hard to earn your trust. On the right side, we asked again your view on the time to market recovery. Last week, you were less optimistic than the previous weeks, despite the soft reopening of Dubai. As we said before, the most difficult part in this crisis is the uncertainty, which is reflected in these surveys. For all of us, This is why we try every single week to bring you the best data on the real estate market. Next slide, please. Now, let's start with a quick look at the COVID-19 situation. Next slide, please. The number of cases continue to increase globally and in the UAE since we last spoke. There are now more than 3.4 million cases globally. In the UAE, we have 14,000 cases. However, the cases per 1 million people stays low compared to other countries. The UAE government removed some of the restrictions 10 days ago. We obviously recommend to follow the government guidelines and to remain cautious. With that said, having less movement restrictions now could be an opportunity for you to conduct live viewings using the product we launched last week. Also, this is a great time to get virtual tours done on all of your listings, especially the vacant ones. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at the real estate data. As you know, we have the best data on UAE real estate market trends, and we are now going to share this with you. We will also share new and more targeted data and make suggestions on what kind of actions to take, because we want to help you manage your business well during this time as well as in the future. Next slide, please. Last week, we reported the number of listings increased for the first time since the beginning of the lockdown. The number of listings has increased again, up 4% for sales and up 5% for rental. In the previous weeks, we showed you that listing views also increased. This is still true with a significant increase last week. So this is for listing views, up 20% for sales and up 22% for rental. Next slide, please. What we show you on this slide is the summary of sales leads for week 18 in 2020 compared to the same week last year. The trends are similar to what we discussed in previous webinars. Dubai apartments is the most impacted, obviously, as we were in full lockdown just up until 10 days ago. Leads for villas in Abu Dhabi are significantly higher than last year. Leads for both apartment and villa in the Northern Emirates are significantly higher than last year as well. One significant change compared to the previous weeks. Sales leads for villas in Dubai were up 30% than the same week last year. I will repeat, sales leads for villas in Dubai were up 30% than the same week last year. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at the same data for rental. Most of the trends are similar to the previous weeks. Northern Emirates has more leads than last year. Villas in Abu Dhabi are up again against last year. However, one new trend that we had not seen in the previous weeks. Rental leads for villas in Dubai are also up for the second week in a row. They are up by 56% compared to the same week last year. So if you remember from the last webinar, we reported that for the first time the previous week, that rental leads for villas were up by 11%. And just within 1 week, it has now gone up to 56%. So this is for rental leads for villas in Dubai. They're up by 56% compared to the same week last year. Needless to say, this is a great time to ramp up on your villa townhouse rental listings, as people are obviously valuing personal outside spaces in their houses. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at sales transactions. And I say this for every single webinar. The transactions that we see now likely started before the COVID-19 crisis. A typical average sales cycle is 45 days from beginning to end. So the biggest impact that we will see with sales transactions could be around mid to end of May, but we may be seeing some of the impact on the top chart here. So the dark blue line are transactions for 2020, and the light blue line are transactions for 2019. Notice the gap was wider last week than any week since the lockdown. Looking at off-plan and secondary, they're both at the same level last week. Next slide, please. So let me summarize what I just said. Number of listings continue to increase, and there has been a significant increase in listing views in the last week. Previous trends in terms of sales and rental leads mostly stay the same. Dubai is still impacted in terms of sale leads for apartments. However, for the first time since the lockdown, sales leads for villa in Dubai are up against last year. Sales leads in Abu Dhabi up against last year for both apartment and villa. And the Northern Emirates continue to overperform compared to last year across all categories: sales, rentals, apartment, and villa. Rental leads are up across all categories except for apartment in Abu Dhabi. Sales transactions are still below 2019 levels, with the secondary market being the most impacted. Next slide, please. At Property Finder, we want to provide you with the most relevant data that will help you take the right actions for your business. This is why this week we want to share new pieces of information on search trends that will help you take immediate actions. Next slide, please. We mentioned a lot the fact that leads for villas were less impacted than leads for apartments. This is also observed in search behavior. Since the beginning of March, the percentage of buy search for villa is higher than buy for apartment. This trend continues to grow even 1 week after the end of the lockdown. Looking at the rental search, which is the chart on the bottom, the trend is less obvious. Now, everyone here should have access to Data Finder. We are offering it to you for free. If you don't have access, please contact your account managers because all of this data is in the market demand section of Data Finder. So we have search behavior, we have lead behavior, we have transaction behavior, and as of today, we activated listing behavior. And you can find all of this within Data Finder. Next slide, please. We also look at more targeted data for the most popular communities. Some are back to pre-lockdown levels. Arabian Ranches and Dubai Hill Estates are areas where both searches and leads increased steadily in April. And notice, both of these are villa townhouse communities. Next slide, please. In Abu Dhabi, it was for Al Reef and Saadiyat Island. Next slide, please. So let's recap the users' insights. So insights from this week, the trends toward villa townhouses continue in the first week post-lockdown. Some communities are now back to pre-lockdown levels in terms of leads and searches. This is Arabian Ranches, Dubai Hills Estate, Al Reef, and Saadiyat Island. And again, to find the full list of how each area is comparing to the other, you can find this on Data Finder. Insights from last week, there's no significant change in consumer search behaviors around maximum and minimum prices. The percentage of searches for pool and garden continue to increase. Virtual tours can support you generating leads. Users who view a virtual tour are almost 3 times more likely to convert into a lead, and 1 in 4 users who see a virtual tour end up watching it completely. In rentals, payment terms are significantly more important now, so this is the time to get your landlords to accept 6+ more checks. Also, as you remember from last week's webinar, the search for short-term rentals increased by over 200% in Dubai during this time.
Okay, thank you, Lynette. Thank you, everyone. So our webinar attendance remains quite high, despite the mobility in the UAE increasing, and also despite the fact that there's now more business than a few weeks ago now, as we have also seen in our data. We all know at Property Finder that your time is super valuable because you need to close business. Therefore, we're working very, very hard to make this the best hour of insights for you every week. And a huge thank you to our external guests as well. Thank you, Francesca and Warren, for being with us. Now, we have the best data in the UAE real estate market, and much more than the information that we shared today is available through Data Finder. As you know, we gave free access to Data Finder. So please ask your account manager if you haven't activated this access. We also publish these webinars on our hub if you want other people in your company to see these insights. And as I always say, we want to be your best partner during this time and also in the future. We only do well if your business does well. We will ask you for your feedback by email in a couple of minutes. This is so that we can make this webinar even better next week. So please answer our survey, and we promise we'll try even harder next week. So stay safe and see you next week.